Today, if all goes well, a House concurrent resolution to withdraw military aid to the murderous Saudi-led war in Yemen will come up for discussion and for a vote. The resolution has been sponsored by a bipartisan group of legislators, Representatives Ro Khanna, DCA 17, Walter Jones, RNC 3, Thomas Massey, RKY 4, and Mark Pocan, DWI 2. Here's a brief summary of the resolution, but you can read more in two places that I'll share a bit later in the article. Con. Res. 81 directs the President to remove U.S. armed forces from hostilities in the Republic of Yemen, except those engaged in operations directed at al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, within 30 days after adoption of this concurrent resolution, unless the President requests and Congress authorizes a later date, and unless and until a declaration of war or specific authorization for the use of U.S. armed forces has been enacted. That's pretty dry sounding, so let's take a look at the reality on the ground, where since March of 2015 the U.S. has been supporting the Saudi-led war in Yemen with bombings that have killed more than 10,000 civilians and deliberately targeting infrastructure such as hospitals and clinics, water treatment plants, schools. They have also blockaded the port, where Yemeni people received their food and medical supplies, creating widespread famine and malnutrition. The U.S. military, without congressional authorization, has been selling arms to the Saudis and allowing them to commit these atrocities by refueling their aircraft, selling them all kinds of weapons and providing military intelligence and targeting. U.S.-backed Saudi-led airstrike has killed at least 26 people at a hotel, an adjacent market in northern Saada province on Wednesday, 11/1/17. Here's a brief update from yesterday's Democracy Now! Headlines about some of the most recent consequences of this ongoing war, with absolutely no restraint or protection of civilians. In Yemen, a U.S.-backed, Saudi-led airstrike has killed at least 26 people at a hotel, an adjacent market in the northern Saada province on Wednesday. The ongoing U.S.-backed, Saudi-led bombing campaign has killed more than 10,000 civilians, sparked the cholera epidemic by destroying Yemen's health, water and sanitation systems, and exacerbated a famine that's left 7 million on the brink of starvation. War: who pays, who dies, who profits? From Popular Resistance Newsletter, October 2017. Planned billboards from Win Without War. To address the health crisis in this country of 28 million people, although the rate of the cholera epidemic is beginning to slow a bit, the number of victims is over 500,000 people. Many of them children, the elderly and young adults, aggravated by the malnutrition, destruction of health and water infrastructure, and the blockades preventing food and medications from entering Yemen. We've been writing about this growing and continuing humanitarian crisis for some time now. To see more of our articles, just search the category Yemen. But to bring us to hcon.res. 81, there is an outstanding op-ed in the New York Times authored by 3 of the 4 sponsors of the resolution. It details their reasons for sponsoring the resolution, but goes far beyond to describe the history of the war, what brought us to this point, and why Congress needs to take back its constitutional powers to authorize war, established after the end of the Vietnam War. It has many links to documentation. This is the last paragraph. We believe that the American people, if presented with the facts of this conflict, will oppose the use of their tax dollars to bomb and starve civilians in order to further the Saudi monarchy's regional goals. Our House resolution is a first step in expanding democracy into an arena long insulated from public accountability. Too many lives hang in the balance to allow this American war to continue without congressional consent. When our bill comes to the floor for a vote, our colleagues should consider first the solution proposed by the director of UNICEF, Anthony Lake, for stopping the unimaginable suffering of millions of Yemenis. Stop the war. A Yemeni student in the ruins of one of his former classrooms. Credit Giles Clark, UN-OCHA. Getty Images. Again, in the interests of brevity, here is a link to a clear, and well-written lobbying document from Peace Action New York State that provides their reasons for supporting the resolution, more history and context, and some graphics about the cholera epidemic, and articles, as they recommend, in the voice of Daniel Larison, writing in the Conservative in early October. The House should pass H. Con. Res. 81. Ideally, it would pass by a wide margin, and I hope it does. Each time a measure to limit or halt U.S. support for the war on Yemen has come up for a vote, it has received more support than the one before it. I would like to think that is because decent people in this country are naturally horrified the more that they learn about this disaster and our role in it. Members of the House will have the chance to go on record whether they want our government to continue enabling an atrocious war. I urge them to vote to stop U.S. involvement so that the war on Yemen may finally be brought to an end.